And then set the Wayback Machine to November 9th, 2024. Hello to the uncanny Manly Matt and the amazing Dave Sim. Even though he lived in Los Angeles most of his adult life, Ray Bradbury famously did not want to learn to drive because he'd had too many friends die in cars. Question for Dave: why did you never learn to drive? Related questions: did your parents and sister drive? Did Denny drive? She implied that in her publisher's letter recounting a visit to the Peonies of ElfQuest fame. Did you always take limousines for conventions and comic shop signings? Thanks again for always answering my odd and brilliant questions. He wrote humbly. Cheers, Mike MJ Dodger Sewell. Hey, we're going to segue off of that humbly. And hey, Mike Dodger Sewell, you're in the San Francisco area. What about you actually went to the Humble Bundle address, if you happen to be in San Francisco in the next while, and hand deliver your letter and say, please tell the CEO of Humble Bundle that I definitely want him to read my letter that I'm handing you now, and tell him that I came here all the way from fill in the blank, California, to deliver it to him personally, because it's this important to me. I'm really rubbing it in now. Anyway, okay. Then you pick up from there. As I replied at the time, Matt writes,
I'm not even done editing the video of the last question. Anyway, legend tells of how Dave decided not to learn to drive after hearing how Alex Raymond died. Parenthetically, spoilers for the eventual end of Sodar. Manly.
And Mike responded, I know you are eminently patient. Always remember, fan stands for fanatic. And he adds, I hadn't even thought of that connection. I hope I didn't err. I've seen polite Canadians like Jim Carrey get mad. I don't want any part of that. Thanks again for all you do. No, I think I will take it as a credential that we are still being really, really calm about the Humble Bundle thing. It would take a great deal to get under this Canadian's skin, because it's tough as a rhino at this point. With whatever extent I was once thin-skinned, I am no longer. Okay, getting to your questions. Yes, Matt's completely right about that, which I thought was completely odd that at whatever age I was, when I found out Alex Raymond died, which would have been maybe 10 or 11, I went, I can never learn how to drive because I'll die the way Alex Raymond died. Did your parents and sister drive? Yes, they did. That provoked an interesting memory in my mind of a couple of memories. My mother learned to drive when I would have been, I'm guessing, about 6 or 7 years old, because I got sent to Vacation Bible School across the street from 282 Westmount Road East, which was Filsinger Road at that point, for whatever duration that was, a couple of hours every weekday, while my mother went and learned how to drive, which means that my father was the only driver in the family from the time that my parents got a car, which would have been while they were still in Stony Creek, and my father was working at Electrohome, the same place that my mother's father worked at. and my mother's father would give my dad a ride to Electra. So sometime in there, my dad learned how to drive. And one of the things that brought us to Kitchener was my dad getting a job offer from Han Brass in New Hamburg, Ontario. And to facilitate that, he bought the used car of one of my mother's maiden aunts, which is what we called them at that time. If you weren't married, you were a maiden aunt. That was either Aunt Fanny or Aunt Gret. My recollection is that it was Aunt Fanny's car, and it was used, and she gave him a good price because it was family, and this allowed him to take a job in New Hamburg and live in Kitchener, which worked out very well. And then he had a traffic accident and totaled that car and was slightly injured, but pretty much unhinged. I remember him coming home unhinged, literally weeping, not just because of the accident, because the car was totaled and he was never going to get another deal like that. And how was he ever going to get from Kitchener to New Hamburg? And Jim Hahn, who owned Han Brass, fronted my dad the money for a new car. Not a new car, but another used car, and said, you can just pay it back the paycheck. This is a very, very noble thing for him to do. So it's interesting that my mother didn't drive. We used to walk all the way up to Queens Boulevard from Westmount East to the bus stop. This was as far down as the buses came at that time. The Queen Street bus would come down just past St. Mary's Hospital. And I remember a lot of, probably weren't that many of them, but as a kid you remember being bitterly cold with wind blowing in your face and walking into this wind up Westmount Road and then up Queens Boulevard to stand at a bus stop waiting for a bus so that we could go downtown. My sister would have learned to drive whatever age you learned to drive. You learned at 15, 16. So she would have been, that would have been 1969, 1970. 1971, somewhere around there, and she definitely got her license. And I remember that then became a big conflict between my mother and my sister of who gets the car and when. And I don't think that's a unique circumstance between mothers and daughters. It was one of those close-up mother and daughters things that I got to look at. The war between you theoretically love me because I'm your daughter and, you know, you want me to be happy, but you won't let me have the car when I want it, and you won't let me have the car so that I can, you know, go to university or whatever it was that she needed it for. And my mother going, my car, it's not our car, it's my car. And I would have been around 11 or 12 at that time, and going, even if I wanted to learn how to drive, I don't think I want to get in the middle of this. I'll be doing the same thing, going, when can I have the car? I want the car. It's our car. It's not your car, Dad. It's our car. And it definitely, every experience that I ever had with cars always turned me off of cars. Did Denny drive? Yes, Denny did drive. And she told an interesting story to me. This was another one of those, you don't want to get in the middle of this, where I think bonding with her mother-in-law, she and my mother drove down to Sunny French Litho on one of Denny's trips down there instead of Denny trying to bring the new issue in. And one of the first things Denny said when she got back is, "Your mother is a terrible driver." And it's like, "What do you mean my mother's a terrible driver?" She goes, "She drives so slow, like she's so slow and so cautious. And this is the 401. She's probably driving 5 or 7 miles below the speed limit." And Denny was deathly afraid that they were going to get rear-ended by somebody going, "What are you doing driving not only the speed limit, but under the speed limit on the highway? This is the highway. Floor it, like everybody else is doing." So that was one of those interesting moments. Hadn't thought of that until you were asking the question there, Mike. Did you always take limousines for conventions and comic shop signings? No. I would take limousines to the airport if I was flying somewhere to go to a convention or a comic shop signing or doing a mini tour or something like that. So limousine was limousine to the airport, flight to the airport, picked up by whoever the store owner or convention organizer was. They drive me back to the airport, fly back to Toronto Pearson Airport, and then I would have the limousine booked. It would be there ready to pick me up, take me back to 221 Queen Street South after I got back, and then it was my little living room going up and down the highway. They would have the mini bar stocked in the back and the television to watch. And the next thing I knew, I was at the airport, and now I'm home. Just exactly where and when I wanted to be. So there you go. That's as thorough as I can be on the driving questions. You asked then? Did Denny? Did Denny drive better than Alan Moore's wife and/or wife's girlfriend? It was Alan Moore's wife's girlfriend at the time, and that was one of those weird female things where what I was saying in the back seat was irritating her as a feminist, and she was taking it out on the gas pedal, and I'm going like, "Oh, okay, I'm not going to stop saying this, but we're pretty well driving way too fast for Northampton, England city streets." Did Denny drive better than her? I don't know. I never learned how to drive, so it was interesting because women are always paranoid about men passengers in their cars because most men drive and most men see themselves as excellent drivers, so they're very, very critical of female driving, the old women drivers thing. And I remember Susan Alston was that way when we started going out. Okay, I did that, but it's that's just something that I did. I'm not a bad driver. I'm actually a very good driver. And it's like I'm going, I never learned how to drive. I wouldn't know. I wouldn't know if you were a good driver or a bad driver. All I know is I get and sit in the shotgun seat, and next thing I know, we're there. Did you always rent limos for your driving needs? If I had to go a long distance, yes. Otherwise, it was taxis. If I was going somewhere in town and it was a lengthy trip, I would take taxis. Sometimes I would take the bus. If I was going and doing a signing in Toronto, I would take the bus because of the sentimental attachment of the Bay Dundas bus terminal, which looked the same as it did when I would go down there when I was 12 years old and then take the subway over to Bathurst for Bathurst and Markham Street for Memory Lane, Captain George's store. So it would be more comfortable to take a limousine to Toronto in that case. But no, I'll take the bus, just the same as I did back then. I don't remember bumming a ride from Gerhard. If we both had to go somewhere, yeah, Gerhard would be driving, and he was definitely the driver on the UK tour. I was in the passenger seat, which was on the other side because it was England. But no, I walked, or I took a taxi, or I took a limousine, and everything else in Kitchener was within walking distance of 221 Queen Street South, including the studio and offices. So never really needed a ride from Gerhard. Gerhard did his own riding over from Woolner Road when he was living over there. Okay, I think that covers the driving situation exhaustively. if there's anything in there that triggers another question, Mike, you know where to find me.
He's typing it right now.
He's typing right now, even before you're editing the video.